The storm rolled in with green lightning across the red sky. It was not natural, and the warriors knew it. Each rumble made the ground tremble as if something deep under the soil was waking up. At the edge of the battlefield stood a massive stone pedestal, carved with ancient alien runes. Upon it rested the Blade of Ages, glowing faintly with a pulse like a beating heart. It had not moved for 1,000 years. Thousands had tried. Warriors of every species, size, and skill had reached for the sword. All had been thrown back. Some were burned. Others turned to ash. A few went mad. None had been accepted. Near the edge of the ruins, hidden behind broken pillars and vines, a human leaned against a shattered beam. His armor was battered, his arm bleeding, but his eyes were calm. His name was Corvan. He was not a soldier. Not really. Just a former engineer who had stumbled into the war between species. He had no medals, no rank, and no idea why he was still alive. Corvan's ship had crashed 3 days ago. He had been walking through the jungle with nothing but a broken pistol and a half-working scanner. Now he stood at the edge of something far beyond his understanding. A scream rang out. A group of elite Vortari warriors approached the blade. Their leader, armored in black stone, lifted his staff and roared. He claimed the sword for the Vortari Empire. The wind howled as the leader stepped forward. He reached out, his hand inches from the hilt. The sword flared red. A sound like metal grinding filled the air, then nothing. He was gone. In his place, a pile of smoking armor clattered to the stone. The other Vortari backed away in horror. One dropped his weapon and ran. None dared step forward again. Corvan watched it all from behind a broken column. He didn't know what the blade was. He didn't care about empires or prophecy. But something about the silence that followed made him move. He stepped into the open. The air shimmered around him. Everyone still standing froze. A human unarmored, wounded, and uninvited was walking toward the sacred pedestal. The wind stopped. The jungle held its breath. Even the birds fell silent. Corvan walked slowly, limping slightly, his eyes locked on the strange sword. His hands were empty. He reached the base of the pedestal. The runes glowed brighter. The sword pulsed. A whisper, too soft for the others to hear, brushed against his ear. It said his name. Corvan blinked. He had heard it clearly. It was not a voice from the crowd or the jungle. It came from the blade. It was calling him, and only him. He climbed the steps, one by one. With every footfall, the runes shifted color. Blue, then gold, then red. The stone beneath his boots seemed warm, alive, aware. When he reached the top, he looked down at the sword. It no longer pulsed. It burned with steady fire. The red blade hummed with a deep rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He reached out. There was no shock, no resistance. Fear. His fingers wrapped around the hilt. The light exploded in every direction. A shockwave blasted across the ruins. Dust and leaves flew through the air. The pedestal cracked and split. The ancient runes lifted off the surface, spinning in glowing rings. But Corvan did not move. He stood in the middle of the storm, holding the sword. Its blade had changed. It now shimmered with a strange mix of red and blue, like fire wrapped in ice. He turned slowly. The other warriors, alien generals, champions, heirs, could only watch. Some dropped to one knee. Others backed away in disbelief. The blade had chosen, and it had chosen a human. The ruins were silent as Corvan stepped down from the cracked pedestal. The blade in his hand no longer shimmered like fire. It had become calm, like it had finally found peace. He looked at the weapon and didn't understand why it had chosen him. He had no training, no power, and no destiny that he knew of. But the sword had called his name. A tall alien woman stepped forward from the shadows. Her skin was deep blue, her armor glowing with ancient symbols. She looked like a commander, proud and dangerous. She raised her hand, signaling the others to stay back. Her eyes studied Corvan carefully, as if searching for a trick, but there was no trick. He simply stood there, holding the blade like it belonged to him. "You should be dead," she said with a cold voice. "That sword has burned kings and shattered gods. You are not even armed." Corvan raised an eyebrow. "Well, I am now," he replied, lifting the blade slightly. The glowing edge hummed softly in reply. Her soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons. Some aimed energy rifles at him. One of them whispered a prayer under his breath, clearly shaken by what they had just seen. The woman stepped closer. "I am Commander Soraya of the Zarngard. That blade was sealed for the worthy. Tell me what makes you worthy." Corvan shrugged. "I have no idea. I didn't come to take it. It came to me." Soraya's lips pressed into a line. She didn't like that answer. She didn't trust humans, especially not one who had just been chosen by a sacred relic their entire galaxy had failed to claim. Behind her, one of the soldiers barked something in their native tongue. She turned her head briefly, then snapped back at him. The soldier backed off immediately. Corvan noticed her control. These weren't just warriors, they were believers. They thought the blade meant salvation or destruction. And now he was holding it in front of them. "I'm not your enemy," Corvan said carefully. "I crashed here. I didn't know about your relic. I was just trying to survive." Soraya walked around him, slowly circling, eyes never leaving the sword. "You should not be able to touch it. The blade accepts only those who carry the blood of the first ones. You are not one of them." Corvan didn't know what that meant. His blood was ordinary, at least he thought it was. But maybe the sword had seen something he didn't. Suddenly the sword flared again. It pulsed red, then blue, then gold. The ground shook under Corvan's feet. Everyone stepped back even. Soraya, a projection burst from the blade. A ghostly figure formed in the air, tall and robed, with glowing eyes. It spoke in a forgotten language, but somehow Corvan understood. "You have awakened the blade of judgment. The bearer shall not be chosen by blood or rank, only by the purity of purpose." The ghost looked at him, then faded into light. The blade returned to its soft glow. The silence that followed felt heavy. Corvan exhaled slowly. "I guess it really did choose me." Soraya looked shaken for the first time. She motioned for her guards to lower their weapons. Then she stepped forward and extended her hand. "Come with me, human. The council will want answers." He hesitated, then nodded. He didn't know who the council was, but answers sounded like a good idea. He followed her down the stairs as the other warriors cleared a path. As they walked, he noticed how the others avoided his eyes. Some showed fear, others showed awe. No one dared come close to the blade. Soraya led him through the forest toward a floating skiff waiting in a clearing. It hummed quietly above the ground. Her second-in-command stood beside it, eyes fixed on the sword. "Do not speak unless spoken to," she warned as they boarded. "They will not like what you carry, even if it chose you." Corvan sat down and laid the blade across his lap. It felt warm, alive. He didn't understand it, but he didn't fear it. The skiff rose into the air. The ruins disappeared below them. He was leaving the jungle behind, but something told him the real test was just beginning. He had no idea what the council was or what they would do. But one thing was certain now. The blade had started something much bigger than him. The skiff glided over the jungle, engines quiet but powerful. Mist drifted through the trees below, and the horizon glowed faintly with the twin moons of Eric's rising. Corvan kept the blade across his lap. He didn't dare strap it or stow it. The weapon felt like it was breathing, like it didn't want to be out of reach. Soraya sat across from him, helmet off, watching him closely. Her eyes weren't angry anymore, just cautious and calculating. "You still don't understand what you've done," she said. "That sword was meant to choose the savior of the core realms. Our people trained champions for centuries to earn it. Corvan looked down at the glowing blade. I didn't ask for it. I didn't even know it was here. I was just trying not to die in your jungle. That's exactly why it may have chosen you, she replied. No pride, no ambition. Just survival and instinct. The skiff slowed as a massive citadel came into view. It was carved into a mountain, its towers rising like black spires against the sky. Dozens of ships hovered nearby. Inside the main hall, alien leaders stood in a half-circle. Tall, regal, armored in gold and obsidian. Their faces were unreadable, but their eyes burned with suspicion. Soraya entered first and announced Corvan's arrival. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One of the elders stepped forward, his voice sharp and deep. This is the one the blade accepted? This human with no name, no bloodline, no purpose? Corvan stood silent. He held the blade upright. Before him, its glow casting a circle of light on the polished floor, the elder turned to Soraya. You brought this outsider to the sacred fortress. If he is not the one foretold, you will answer for the risk. Soraya did not flinch. The blade called his name. It rejected our strongest, but not him. I obeyed its will. Another elder, a woman with silver skin and golden eyes, stepped closer. She studied Corvan like a puzzle she couldn't solve. What is your desire, human? Why did you reach for the blade of judgment? Corvan met her eyes. I didn't reach for it. It reached for me. I don't want power. I just want the truth. Silence followed. One of the younger counselors scoffed and stepped forward. He drew his blade and pointed it at Corvan's chest. If he is truly chosen, let the blade prove it now. Let him stand against me in single combat. Soraya's voice was sharp. That's not part of the tradition, but the elder woman raised a hand. No, let it happen. The blade reveals truth through conflict. Let the trial begin. Corvan didn't move as the younger counselors stepped into the ring. The circle of light formed by the ceiling crystals lit the dueling floor. I'm not a fighter, Corvan said under his breath. I fix things, I build systems. I'm not supposed to be here. But the blade pulsed in his hand, calm and steady. It hummed softly, as if assuring him that it would guide him. The young counselor lunged. His sword came fast, a blur of silver light. Corvan barely reacted in time, swinging the ancient blade in defense. The weapons clashed. Energy cracked through the air. Sparks rained across the floor. The counselor stumbled back, shocked by the strength in Corvan's strike. Corvan blinked. He hadn't swung with force. The blade had moved on its own, guiding his arms like it had a will of its own. Another strike came. Corvan dodged clumsily, then parried with unexpected precision. The counselor fell to one knee, disarmed and gasping. The chamber fell into silence. No one moved. Corvan stood in the center, barely breathing, the blade still glowing calmly in his hand. The elder woman stepped forward. It is true. The blade not only accepted him, it defends him. It acts with him. Soraya nodded slowly. He is not a warrior by training. But the blade makes him one. The elders exchanged glances. Their council had no rules for this. Number. History spoke of the blade choosing someone so ordinary. Corvan exhaled. I didn't ask for this. But if this blade wants something from me, I'll see it through. The eldest of the group raised his staff. Then you will undergo the full trial. If you pass, the blade will stay with you. If you fail, it will return to the stone. Corvan tightened his grip. Whatever the trial was, he didn't think it would be fair. But he wasn't going to walk away, not now that he had felt the sword's heartbeat as his own. Asterisk. The trial of truth was held beneath the citadel in an ancient chamber carved from black stone. Glowing veins of blue energy pulsed through the walls. Like a heartbeat from the past, Corvan stood in the center, the blade of judgment resting against his back. Around him, the elders watched silently from shadowed platforms above. Soraya stood near the entrance. arms crossed, eyes sharp. She had seen many trials before, but never one where the challenger was untrained. 3 doors appeared in front of Corvan, made from shifting light. One shimmered gold. One burned red. One flickered with a cold, dark blue. A voice echoed in his mind, not from the elders but from the blade itself. Choose not the path you desire. Choose the path that sees your soul. He looked at the golden door. It felt warm, safe. The red door pulsed with danger. The blue door made his skin crawl, but his hand moved toward it without thinking. He stepped through the blue light and entered a narrow corridor lined with mirrors. But the mirrors didn't show his reflection. They showed versions of him he didn't recognize. One showed him wearing a crown. Another showed him on his knees, broken. One showed him older, standing on a ruined battlefield. He walked forward, heart pounding. The blade whispered again, "These are your maybes, your futures, your fears. Do not trust them. Face what you are." A mirror shattered as he passed it. Glass fell like rain, revealing a shadowy figure behind it. The figure had his face, but wore dark armor and held a burning red sword. The figure attacked without warning. Corvan dodged, barely keeping his footing. He raised his own blade just in time to deflect a vicious strike. The battle wasn't just physical. Each clash filled his mind with doubts. Visions of failure, regret, loneliness. The shadow tried to drown him in fear, but Corvan pushed forward. He focused on the rhythm of the blade. It didn't fight for him, it fought with him. Each step, each block, each counter was shared. Final strike came when Corvan ducked low and swept the blade in an arc of light. The shadow burst into smoke, vanishing with a high shriek. The mirrors faded. The corridor turned into a new chamber, circular and quiet. In the center was a small girl, sitting beside a broken droid. She was crying softly. He approached her slowly. "Are you hurt?" he asked, lowering his blade. She looked up, eyes glowing faintly. "They all leave, every time. When I show them this part, they turn away." Corvan knelt beside her. "I'm not leaving. What is this part?" She pointed at the broken droid. "This was my friend. They destroyed him to test me. They said if I cried, I was weak. So I stopped crying." Corvan placed a hand on the droid's frame. "Grief isn't weakness. It means you loved something." The girl blinked, and a soft blue light filled the room. She faded away like a memory released from pain. The droid repaired itself and stood silently. Then everything vanished. The room, the light, the droid. Corvan found himself back in the trial hall. The elders were standing now. Soraya looked stunned. The eldest elder spoke. "You passed through the path of the soul. No trick, no brute strength, only truth. The blade has not made a mistake." Soraya stepped forward. "What did you see?" Corvan hesitated. "My fear, my future, and someone who needed kindness more than power." The blade glowed stronger now. Its color was no longer just red. It shifted like living flame, red, gold, and blue, intertwined like spirit and will. The elders bowed their heads. Then the fung. "Trial is complete. The blade is yours until death or dishonor." Corvan didn't feel like a victor. He felt changed. Not by power, but by what he had faced inside himself. He looked at Soraya. "What happens now?" She nodded toward the rising chamber doors. "Now you meet the one who forged the blade. If he still lives, he may tell you why it waited for you." Corvan took a deep breath and followed her into the unknown. The corridor behind the trial hall was unlike anything Corvan had seen. It was carved from smooth stone that pulsed with soft light, as if it were alive. Symbols moved gently across the walls, not engraved but floating just above the surface. They shimmered in time with Corvan's heartbeat. Soraya led the way, her steps steady and purposeful. She did not speak, but her grip on her weapon had loosened. Her posture showed respect, not suspicion. They reached a massive sealed gate. It opened with a deep groan, revealing a chamber filled with warmth and golden light. In the center sat an old man with skin like polished bark and eyes like stars. His robes were layered with metal threads, and he held no weapon. He looked up. Slowly, as if he had been waiting a long time. His gaze landed on the blade in Corvan's hand. Then he smiled. "You are late, child of the stars," the old man said. "But the blade always finds its bearer in time." Corvan stepped forward. Cautiously. "Are you the one who made this?" The man nodded. "I forged it when the galaxy still sang. When war had not yet poisoned the stars. It was not meant for kings or killers. It was meant for those who ask nothing." Corvan tilted his head. "But why me? I'm not special. I don't have power or training. That is exactly why it chose you," the man replied. "The blade seeks purpose, not pride. You touched it without desire. That is rare." Saraya stood at the edge of the room, silent but watching. Her sharp eyes had softened, like she too had begun to understand. The old man rose slowly. "There is something the blade has not shown you yet. Something hidden even from the trials. Come closer." Corvan obeyed. The man placed a hand over the blade's hilt. A new light surged through it, brighter, deeper, and filled with memories not his own. Visions rushed into Corvan's mind. He saw a peaceful planet burned by war. He saw the blade shattered, then reforged with tears and fire. He saw a promise carved into starlight, and then he saw a child. Not human, not alien. Something in between. The blade had waited not just for a bearer, but for a beginning. Corvan staggered back, heart pounding. What was that? "The blade is not just a weapon. It is a seed," the man said. "You are not its end. You are its start. A bridge." Between old hatred and new hope, Saraya stepped forward now. A hybrid child? Between human and what? The man smiled sadly. "That choice has not been made. But it must come from peace, not from arrangement or rule. The bearer must lead with truth." Corvan felt the weight of the blade grow heavier in his hands, not in mass, but in meaning. He wasn't just holding history. He was carrying a future. Then, "What do I do?" he asked. "What comes next?" "You will leave this place," the old man said. "And you will protect what the blade reveals. You will not be alone, but you will be tested." The chamber trembled slightly, as if something deep below had stirred. The light in the walls grew dimmer. The old man closed his eyes. "My time ends here, but yours begins now. Take the blade. Follow its path. And when the moment comes, do not run from who you are." The man faded like dust on wind. His body dissolved into glowing particles that danced upward and vanished into the stone. Corvan stood in silence. The chamber was empty now, yet filled with purpose. Saraya walked to his side without speaking. They returned to the surface together. The sky was darker now, and storm clouds circled the distant peaks. "Will they let me leave?" Corvan asked. Saraya gave a half smile. "They won't stop you. They fear what they don't control. But they know the blade no longer belongs to them." He nodded and looked out toward the mountains. Somewhere out there, the blade would lead him again. And this time, he would be ready to follow. The wind howled as Corvan stepped out of the citadel gates. The air smelled of stone and cold metal. Behind him, the ancient fortress loomed like a forgotten god. He walked without speaking. Saraya followed a few paces behind, her face unreadable. The blade rested across Corvan's back, humming softly with each step. A transport skiff waited near the cliff edge, its engines quiet. A single pilot nodded at Saraya as they approached, lowering the ramp without a word. They boarded in silence. As the skiff lifted into the sky, the jungle below turned into a blur of dark green and silver. Corvan leaned against the railing, watching the clouds shift. He couldn't shake the weight of the old man's words. The blade wasn't just a relic. It was a beginning. Soraya finally broke the silence. The council will not stop you, but others will. Word of your trial is already spreading. There are those who want the blade, no matter the cost. Then they'll come for me, Corvan replied. But I won't give it up. Not now. She nodded. Good, because there's something you need to see. The skiff turned toward a distant ridge. Beyond it lay ruins far older than the citadel. Pillars broken by time. Walls covered in vines and moss. But the symbols matched the blade. They landed in silence. As they stepped onto the overgrown path, Corvan felt the blade grow warmer. Like it recognized this place, Soraya led him through the ruins to a sunken courtyard. At its center stood a stone cradle. And inside that cradle, covered by dust and flowers, was another blade. But this one was black, its edge jagged. Its aura cold. Corvan felt the warmth in his chest retreat as he stepped closer. This is its twin, Soraya said. Forged in the same fire. Meant to serve the same purpose. But it was corrupted before it ever chose a bearer. Corvan stared at the blade. It didn't hum or glow. It pulsed like a warning. Something alive but twisted. The dark blade doesn't choose. It consumes, Soraya continued. Long ago, a warrior named Velis tried to bond with it. He vanished. But legends say he still wanders, blade in hand. And if it finds me? Corvan asked. It will test you, she said. Not with visions, not with truth, but with force. It only respects domination. If it senses weakness, it strikes. He reached for his own blade. It pulsed stronger now, like it wanted to defend him even from its sibling. They left the black sword untouched. As they returned to the skiff, Soraya glanced at Corvan. You need to understand what's coming. This isn't just about the blade anymore. It's about what comes after. He nodded. The old man said I'd be a bridge between what was and what could be. That means more than fighting. Back in the air, the skiff rose toward the upper atmosphere. Stars began to peek through the clouds. Soraya activated the come link. We've picked him up, she said. Prepare the chamber. He's ready. Corvan raised an eyebrow. Chamber? You'll see, she replied with a faint smile. There's one final piece to your journey. A test no blade can help you with. They reached an orbital platform, drifting high above the planet. It was sleek, silver, and surrounded by silent drones. A hangar opened, and the skiff drifted inside. Inside the chamber was a room unlike any Corvan had entered. It was circular and quiet, lined with crystal panels that reflected his every move. In the center stood a single chair. Beside it, a small console pulsed with soft blue light. No guards, no weapons. Just a choice. What is this place? Corvan asked. Soraya stepped beside him. This is the heart room. Only chosen bearers enter. Not to fight, but to decide. He approached the chair slowly. The console blinked once, then projected two paths in the air, one marked with fire, the other with light. One path leads to war, she said. You become a weapon. The blade conquers with you. The other path leads to unity. You become a guide. The blade guards peace. Corvan looked at both. One was swift, the other slow. One earned fear, the other earned trust. Both were heavy with consequence. He sat down. The blade flared once, then stilled. His hand moved toward the console. He made his choice. Corvan's hand hovered over the glowing console. Both paths pulsed gently, waiting for his decision. He felt the weight of countless lives pressing down on him. He chose the path of unity. Not because it was easy, but because it was right. The console accepted his input without a sound. The blade across his back responded with a soft pulse of light. The room dimmed as the projection faded. The chair lowered. The console went still. Then the door behind him opened, revealing Soraya standing calmly with arms crossed. "You made your choice," she said. "Now the galaxy will watch what that choice becomes." He followed her through the hallway. The orbital platform was no longer quiet. Lights flickered across the walls. Ships docked. Messages streamed across monitors. Movement had begun. Soraya led him to a war room filled with maps, signals, and faces from many species. Some looked human. Most did not. But all turned as he entered. "This is the chosen bearer," Soraya announced. "He walks with the blade." He chose peace. The room didn't erupt into cheers. It stayed quiet, respectful. These were not warriors of celebration. They were survivors of wars. A tall alien with glass-like skin approached. "Peace is not passive," he said. "It must be protected. Are you prepared for that?" Corvan met his gaze. "If the blade stands with me, I will stand for all who believe in its path." A younger officer pointed to the edge of the star map. "Then we have a problem. A transmission just reached us. Someone has taken the dark blade." The room tensed. Even Soraya stiffened. Corvan stepped closer to the projection. A figure in black armor stood holding the corrupted weapon. His face hidden behind a cracked visor. "Who is he?" Corvan asked. "No one knows," the officer replied. "But he calls himself Veles, and he's heading toward the core worlds. He's already destroyed 2 outposts." Corvan's hand tightened around the hilt of his blade. He didn't need a name. He felt the echo. The other blade had found its own bearer. "Then we don't have time," he said. "Where is the nearest jump ship?" Soraya raised a brow. "You're going to face him?" "If I don't, he'll keep spreading fire. And this time, there won't be anything left to rebuild." The council offered no resistance. They gave him a stealth cruiser, fast and shielded. A single escort joined him, Soraya herself. "You're not doing this alone," she said as they boarded. "You may carry the blade, but this fight belongs to both of us." They jumped through slip space. The stars bent around them like waves. No one spoke during the travel. There was nothing left to say until they arrived. Their destination was a broken moon once used for mining. Now it was cracked open like an egg. Fires burned in its canyons. The energy of the dark blade pulsed from its center. Corvan and Soraya stepped out onto scorched stone. The air was thick with smoke. Then the figure appeared, standing atop a ruined platform, black blade glowing red. "You are too late," Veles said. His voice echoed like thunder. "This galaxy belongs to power, not peace." Corvan drew his blade. It flared in answer, calm, focused. A light in the growing dark. Veles jumped down, landing with force that cracked the stone. "You chose mercy. That makes you weak. And I will break you." Soraya circled to the side, her blades drawn. She didn't wait. She struck first, forcing Veles to parry. Corvan joined, his blade guiding his every move. The fight was brutal. Sparks lit the sky. The twin blades clashed like lightning against thunder. Veles fought with rage. Corvan fought with clarity. Each strike from Corvan felt guided. Not just by the weapon, but by memory, by truth, by purpose. Veles howled as the light cut through his defenses. Still, Veles didn't fall. The corrupted blade fed on fury. It grew stronger as his anger rose. The battlefield cracked under their feet. The moon trembled. Corvan knew they couldn't win with strength. They had to win with resolve. He locked eyes with Veles and lowered his blade slightly. "You don't have to fall," he said. "You can still choose. The blade hasn't consumed you yet." For a moment, Veles paused. Veles froze for a heartbeat as Corvan's words echoed across the broken stone. The fire in his corrupted blade flickered, uncertain. Soraya stood ready, but she didn't strike. She waited, eyes narrowed, watching the moment shift from rage to silence. "You think I can choose?" Veles growled. I am bound to this blade. It feeds on hate. It will not let me go. Corvan stepped forward slowly. No blade controls us. We give it power. We decide who we are. Velis looked down at his weapon. The glow around it pulsed violently. Cracks spread across the platform. Beneath his feet, "You don't know what it's like," Velis whispered. "To carry nothing but failure. To be chosen only for destruction." Corvan raised his blade beside him. Its light was steady and pure. "You can be more than that. Even now, if you let go." The wind screamed around them as the two blades reacted. One pulsed with fury, the other with calm resolve. The battle was no longer just between warriors. It was between choices. Velis shouted and charged. Their blades clashed again, but this time Corvan didn't strike with force. He moved. With balance, with clarity. He redirected Velis's rage into emptiness. Strike after strike, the corrupted blade grew unstable. Its edges shimmered with wild energy, burning out of control. Velis roared in pain as it began to fight him. "You don't want this," Corvan said, "and the blade knows it. That's why it's tearing you apart." Velis dropped to one knee. His breath was ragged. The corrupted sword cracked down the center. Light and shadow spilled from it in equal measure. Soraya stepped closer, but Corvan held out a hand. "No, he has to finish this. No one else can." Velis stared at his weapon. Then, with trembling hands, he raised it over his head and slammed it into the ground. The explosion of energy lit the sky. The corrupted blade shattered completely, releasing a scream that wasn't his voice. Darkness lifted like smoke, vanishing into the stars. Silence returned to the moon. Velis collapsed to the ground, alive but broken. The corruption was gone. Only a man remained. Corvan sheathed his own blade. Its glow softened, as if acknowledging the choice that had been made. Soraya approached Velis cautiously. "What will you do with him?" Corvan looked down at the fallen warrior. "He gets a second chance. Same as I did." They lifted Velis onto the ship and left the broken moon behind. The darkness that once clung to it faded as they rose into the sky. Word of the battle spread quickly. Not just of the blade or the duel, but of the choice that ended it. A bearer who chose peace and convinced another to do the same. The council welcomed Corvan back with silent reverence. There was no parade, no grand speech. Only bowed heads and a new place set at the table of leaders. Soraya stood beside him. No longer just his guard. She was now his ally, his equal, and perhaps one day his friend. Velis was taken to a quiet world. No prison, just space and time to rebuild himself. He asked for nothing. He was given everything he never thought he deserved. Corvan looked out at the stars from the citadel's highest spire. The blade rested beside him, quiet but awake. Its fire was steady now, its purpose fulfilled. He did not know what challenges would come next, but he knew he would meet them without fear, because the blade had not made him powerful. It had made him honest, and that truth above all would lead the galaxy into something new.